When Ethan, a struggling young man from a small town, crosses paths with Michael, a self-made millionaire, he's offered a tantalizing choice: a quick fortune or the chance to learn the secrets of real success. Ethan sat on a park bench, staring out at the cityscape before him. The noise of bustling cars and hurried pedestrians seemed distant, drowned out by the overwhelming weight of his thoughts. Life had not been kind to him lately. His once hopeful dreams of making it out of his small town had been reduced to endless bills, dead-end jobs, and the gnawing feeling that time was slipping away. He felt stuck, unable to move forward yet unwilling to give up. Then, as if out of a different world, Michael approached. Michael was the kind of man who exuded success. Everything about him, from his tailored suit to his polished shoes, screamed wealth and confidence. He was a self-made millionaire, a man whose name was spoken with admiration in boardrooms and whispered in awe by aspiring entrepreneurs. But today, he wasn't in some high-rise office. He was walking through this ordinary park, and his eyes fell on Ethan, sitting alone, lost in his own worries. "Mind if I sit?" Michael asked. Ethan looked up, surprised but nodded. Michael sat beside him, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt oddly comfortable. Finally, Michael broke it. "You look like a man with a lot on his mind," he said. Ethan let out a sigh, glancing at the stranger beside him. "You could say that," he replied, the weariness in his voice betraying just how heavy his burdens had become. Michael studied him for a moment before reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a checkbook, scribbled something, and held out the check to Ethan. "Here," Michael said. "Take this. It should cover whatever you're going through." Ethan blinked in shock. He looked down at the piece of paper in Michael's hand. The amount written there was more money than he had ever seen in his life, enough to clear his debts and then some. It was a lifeline, a way out of his current misery. But Ethan didn't reach for it. Instead, he hesitated, his mind racing. Taking the money would solve his problems for now, but what then? It wouldn't change the fact that he was lost, without direction. He wanted more than just a quick fix. He wanted to understand how men like Michael became what they were, how they built their success from nothing. "I can't take that," Ethan finally said, his voice firm but respectful. "But I do want to know how you got here, how you built everything you have." Michael raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Most people would have grabbed the check without a second thought, but this young man wanted something different. He wanted to learn, and that, more than anything, sparked Michael's interest. "Really?" Michael asked, testing the waters. "You'd rather learn how to fish than be given one?" Ethan nodded, his determination starting to show through. "I don't want a handout. I want to understand how to make something of myself." Michael smiled, a slow, approving grin. He admired that. Few people had the foresight or the patience to ask for knowledge instead of wealth. "All right then," he said. "I'll teach you, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to take time, discipline, and a lot of hard work." "I'm ready for that," Ethan replied, the weight on his shoulders starting to feel a little lighter. With that, their unlikely partnership began. Michael saw something in Ethan, a spark, a hunger, that reminded him of himself when he was starting out. And Ethan, for the first time in a long while, felt a sense of hope. He didn't just want to survive anymore. He wanted to thrive. And now, with Michael as his mentor, he finally had a chance to learn how. As they left the park that day, Ethan had no idea just how much his life was about to change. Ethan's first day under Michael's mentorship began early. By 6 a.m., Ethan was at Michael's office, a sleek, modern building that reflected its owner's success. The early hour didn't seem to bother Michael, who greeted Ethan with the same sharp focus and energy he'd seen in their first meeting. "You ready?" Michael asked, his eyes scanning Ethan with a mixture of expectation and curiosity. "I'm ready," Ethan replied, though part of him wondered if he truly was. The doubts lingered, but his determination outweighed them. Michael led him through the building, showing him the various departments and teams, explaining how each piece of the company contributed to its overall success. But it wasn't the mechanics of business that Michael focused on. Instead, he emphasized something unexpected: mindset. Business isn't just about numbers and strategy, Michael explained as they walked through the marketing department. It's about how you think, how you react under pressure, how you handle failure. You can know everything there is to know about running a company, but if your mind isn't in the right place, none of it will matter. Ethan listened carefully, absorbing every word. He had always assumed success was purely technical. Master the skills, make the money. But Michael was showing him there was a deeper level to it. It wasn't just about knowledge. It was about emotional resilience, discipline, and long-term vision. Your first task, Michael said as they stopped outside a conference room, is to learn about marketing. I want you to take a look at our current campaigns, analyze what we're doing, and see if you spot any inefficiencies. Ethan's heart raced a little. This was no small assignment. He was being asked to evaluate a multi-million-dollar company's marketing strategy, something he had never done before. But he didn't let the fear take over. He reminded himself of why he was here: to learn, to grow, to take on challenges. For the next week, Ethan dove deep into the world of marketing. He read everything he could about digital campaigns, consumer psychology, and the changing trends in the market. He studied Michael's company's past strategies and compared them to industry leaders. And slowly but surely, he started to see patterns, small inefficiencies in how they were targeting certain demographics and wasting resources on outdated channels. After gathering his thoughts, Ethan nervously approached Michael's office. Michael looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable as Ethan handed him a report detailing his findings. "Let's see what you've got," Michael said, flipping through the pages. As Michael read, Ethan stood quietly, unsure of what to expect. But as the minutes passed, a small smile crept across Michael's face. "You've done your homework," Michael finally said, leaning back in his chair. "I was expecting surface-level observations, but you went deeper. This analysis is good. Really good." Ethan exhaled, a wave of relief washing over him. Michael wasn't just being polite. He could tell there was genuine respect in his tone. "Your recommendations are sharp," Michael continued. "We've been throwing too much budget into broad campaigns without focusing on the specific audiences we actually need. Narrowing down will save us money and boost engagement. I'll have the team implement these changes immediately." That moment was a turning point. For the first time, Ethan realized he wasn't just there to watch and learn. He could contribute, and his insights were valuable. Michael's respect for him deepened, and the seeds of a mentor-mentee relationship began to sprout. As Ethan continued to shadow Michael, he noticed more and more how the emotional aspects of leadership played a crucial role. It wasn't enough to simply know the right business moves. Handling people, dealing with stress, and maintaining long-term discipline were equally important. Ethan began to focus on developing his emotional intelligence, learning how to stay calm under pressure and understand the motivations of the people around him. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan's responsibilities began to grow. Michael trusted him with more tasks, seeing in him a potential that went beyond just business acumen. There was something about Ethan's drive and willingness to go the extra mile that reminded Michael of himself. But for Ethan, the biggest lesson was this: success wasn't just about making money. It was about creating something lasting, about making decisions today that would benefit tomorrow. He realized that if he wanted to truly succeed, he needed to think long-term, not just chase quick wins. As the company's newly optimized marketing strategy took off, Ethan saw firsthand the impact of his work. Revenues grew, and the team's morale improved as they saw the fruits of their labor. Michael, ever the sharp-eyed mentor, watched Ethan closely, gauging how he handled this new phase of growth. "You've done well," Michael said one day as they stood in the office hallway. "But this is just the beginning. The real test of leadership isn't in moments of success. It's in how you handle failure and setbacks. Be ready for that." Ethan nodded, taking the words to heart. He knew he had a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was on the right path. The days of feeling stuck and directionless were behind him. Now, he had a purpose, and a mentor who was teaching him the value of discipline, perseverance, and thinking beyond the immediate future. This was just the start of his journey, but already, Ethan was beginning to understand the foundations of true success. Months passed, and Ethan's role within the company continued to evolve. His sharp observations and growing expertise hadn't gone unnoticed by the rest of the team, and it was clear that Michael's decision to mentor him had paid off. But Ethan wasn't just content with being another cog in the corporate machine. He had his sights set on something bigger, becoming a leader who could influence others the way Michael had influenced him. One afternoon, after reviewing the latest marketing data that reflected significant growth, Michael called Ethan into his office. "You've done great work," Michael said, his tone measured but approving. "The marketing campaigns have turned things around in ways I didn't expect. You've not only brought fresh ideas, but also executed them with precision." Ethan felt a sense of pride, but he knew better than to let it get to his head. Success was a team effort, and his victories were only possible because of the opportunities Michael had given him and the collaboration of the people around him. "I'm glad it's been working," Ethan replied humbly, "but I couldn't have done any of this without your guidance and the team's support." Michael nodded, but there was a deeper look in his eyes. "You've proven yourself beyond that now. I think it's time for you to take on more responsibility." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He had expected more tasks, maybe another project, but Michael had something different in mind. "I want you to step into a leadership role," Michael said plainly. "You've shown that you understand more than just marketing. You have a knack for seeing the bigger picture. This company is growing, and I need people I can trust to help steer it." Ethan was stunned. It was the opportunity he'd been working toward, but it came sooner than expected. He hadn't fully seen himself as a leader yet, but if Michael believed in him, he wasn't about to shy away from the challenge. "What kind of leadership role?" Ethan asked, carefully masking the excitement rising within him. "You're going to lead a new initiative," Michael said. "I want you to develop a mentorship program for junior employees. You've experienced firsthand how important mentorship can be. I want you to build something that helps others the way I've helped you." The idea clicked in Ethan's mind. He realized this wasn't just about leading a project. It was about creating a culture within the company that prioritized growth, not just for the business but for the people who made it work. Michael wanted him to pass down what he had learned: discipline, emotional intelligence, long-term thinking, and help shape the next generation of leaders. Ethan accepted the challenge wholeheartedly. Over the next few weeks, he designed a mentorship program that paired junior employees with seasoned professionals, focusing not only on technical skills but also on personal development. He structured it around teamwork, emotional intelligence, and resilience, teaching the lessons he had learned from Michael. He emphasized that real success wasn't just about hitting targets, but about growing as individuals and making a lasting impact on the company and beyond. The program quickly gained traction. Employees, both new and old, appreciated the opportunity to grow under experienced guidance, and morale in the company began to rise. People were more engaged, more invested in their work, knowing they were part of something bigger. As the mentorship program flourished, Ethan's reputation grew. His leadership style, quiet but firm, focused on personal development and teamwork, set him apart from others in the company. His ability to connect with employees on a deeper level, listening to their concerns and guiding them through challenges, earned him widespread respect. But with recognition came temptation. Offers began to pour in from other companies. Rivals in the industry had noticed the changes happening under Ethan's leadership and saw potential in him. They offered large salaries, leadership positions, and promises of faster success. Ethan couldn't help but feel the allure of these offers. It would be easy to accept a big paycheck and ride the wave of his newfound success. But every time he considered it, he remembered why he started this journey. It wasn't about quick wealth or superficial accomplishments. It was about long-term growth, not just for himself but for the people around him. Michael had taught him that success built on ethical leadership and perseverance was worth more than any fleeting opportunity. One evening, after a particularly tempting offer from a high-profile firm, Ethan sat in Michael's office. "You've been getting offers, haven't you?" Michael asked, his eyes sharp as always. Ethan nodded. "I have, and they're tempting," Ethan admitted. "But I'm not interested. I've learned that chasing after the next big thing isn't the kind of success I want. I want to build something meaningful." Michael leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Good. You've learned well. But remember, it's not just about loyalty to me or this company. It's about being loyal to the vision you have for yourself." With those words, Ethan felt a renewed sense of clarity. He wasn't just turning down offers. He was committing to his own mission of personal growth and leadership. Over time, Ethan's influence within the company only grew stronger. He wasn't the loudest or most aggressive leader, but people gravitated toward him because he genuinely cared about their development. Under his guidance, the company not only thrived financially, but also became known for its culture of mentorship and personal growth. And yet, despite his success, Ethan remained grounded. He turned down opportunities that didn't align with his values, and when faced with challenges, he approached them with the same discipline and long-term thinking Michael had instilled in him. Michael had trusted him with more significant responsibilities, and Ethan had proven that he could handle them. But the road ahead would not be easy. Bigger challenges lay just around the corner, and Ethan knew that his journey was far from over. Still, as he looked at the people he had helped mentor and the positive changes unfolding around him, he felt more confident than ever that he was on the right path. He was becoming the kind of leader he had always aspired to be, one focused on growth, both his own and others, and on creating something that would last well beyond any temporary success. This was just the beginning of Ethan's rise as a true leader. Ethan's leadership had transformed the company. The mentorship program he spearheaded had shifted the culture, and employees were more engaged, motivated, and loyal. The results spoke for themselves. Revenues were climbing, and the company's reputation was stronger than ever. However, with greater responsibility came more complex challenges, and Ethan would soon face one of the most critical tests of his leadership. It started with a sudden, unexpected financial downturn. A major client pulled out of a long-term contract due to market volatility, leaving a significant hole in the company's revenue stream. The ripple effect was immediate. Departments began tightening budgets, and some projects were delayed. The company, which had been riding high on a wave of growth, now faced a potential financial crisis. Michael, as always, kept his cool, but the weight of the situation was apparent. For the first time since Ethan had started, Michael looked visibly concerned. One afternoon, Michael called Ethan into his office, his tone more serious than usual. "We're in trouble," Michael said bluntly, leaning forward in his chair. "We need to cut costs and fast, or we'll be facing layoffs." Ethan felt the gravity of the situation sink in. The mentorship program he had worked so hard to build, the relationships he had fostered with the employees, all of it was at risk if the company didn't find a solution soon. But Michael wasn't finished. "I need you to take the lead on this," he continued. "I need someone I trust to negotiate a new deal with our suppliers, restructure our contracts, and find a way to stabilize the situation." Ethan had never handled negotiations of this magnitude before. The pressure was immense, but he knew this was the moment Michael had been preparing him for. He couldn't afford to let fear dictate his actions. It was time to rise to the occasion. For the next week, Ethan immersed himself in the company's financials, reviewing contracts, and analyzing every possible avenue for cost saving. He reached out to suppliers, prepared for tense negotiations, and met with department heads to discuss which areas of the budget could be trimmed without harming core operations. The negotiations were grueling. Suppliers, sensing the company's vulnerability, were reluctant to offer favorable terms. Ethan knew he needed to approach this with more than just logic. He needed to understand the emotions behind the business decisions. Using the emotional intelligence skills Michael had taught him, he built rapport with the suppliers, understanding their own challenges and working to find a middle ground that benefited both parties. Days turned into sleepless nights as Ethan pushed through difficult conversations, but slowly, progress was made. He managed to renegotiate key contracts, securing lower costs while maintaining essential services. By the end of the week, Ethan had successfully restructured several deals, stabilizing the company's cash flow and preventing the need for immediate layoffs. When he presented the results to Michael, there was a rare moment of silence as Michael scanned the figures. Finally, he looked up, his eyes filled with approval. "You saved us," Michael said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This deal buys us the time we need to turn things around." Ethan exhaled, the weight of the past week finally lifting. It wasn't just relief he felt, it was pride. He had taken on one of the most difficult tasks of his career and emerged on the other side stronger for it. But Ethan's work wasn't done. With the immediate crisis averted, he turned his attention to the employees. He knew that, despite the financial recovery, the stress and uncertainty had taken a toll on morale. He had learned that leadership wasn't just about fixing problems. It was about guiding people through the difficult times and reassuring them that their work mattered. Ethan organized a company-wide meeting to address the situation head-on. He didn't sugarcoat the challenges they had faced, but emphasized the resilience they had shown and the bright future ahead. He spoke about the sacrifices made and the teamwork that had allowed them to pull through. And more importantly, he made it clear that the company's success was a collective effort, not just the result of top-down decisions. "I believe in what we've built here," Ethan told the employees. "But more than that, I believe in all of you. This isn't just about numbers. It's about creating something that lasts, something that we can all be proud of. Together, we're going to get through this, and when we do, we'll be stronger for it." The speech resonated. Ethan had always been a quiet leader, preferring action over words, but now, his words carried the weight of someone who had not only faced adversity but had also found a way to overcome it with integrity. The employees left the meeting with renewed confidence, inspired by Ethan's leadership. But Ethan wasn't content to stop there. He saw an opportunity to do more, not just for the company, but for the community. With the business stabilized, he launched an initiative to support struggling small businesses in the local area, many of which were facing their own challenges due to the economic downturn. Using the company's resources and his newfound influence, Ethan created a program offering free business consulting and mentorship to these small businesses. The initiative aimed to help local entrepreneurs navigate the same obstacles he and Michael had faced. It wasn't just about giving back. It was about creating a network of mutual support, lifting up those who needed it most. The initiative quickly gained attention, not only from the local community but from other businesses and even the media. Ethan's efforts were seen as a model of corporate social responsibility, and soon, other companies were reaching out, asking how they could replicate the program. As the initiative grew, so did Ethan's reputation. He became known not only as a capable leader, but as one with a deep commitment to ethical leadership and social responsibility. His success wasn't just measured by profits, it was measured by the positive impact he was making on the lives of others. Michael, watching from the sidelines, couldn't have been prouder. Ethan had not only stepped up when the company needed him most, but he had also stayed true to his values, using his platform to make a real difference. This was the kind of leadership Michael had hoped to instill in him from the beginning, a leadership based on integrity, empathy, and long-term thinking. In the end, Ethan's rise as a leader wasn't defined by the deals he negotiated or the crises he managed. It was defined by the way he brought people together, the way he used his influence for good, and the legacy of responsibility and service he began to build. And though the road ahead would still be filled with challenges, Ethan was more ready than ever to face them. He had learned what true leadership meant, not just steering the ship through calm waters, but weathering the storms with courage, humility, and a sense of purpose. Ethan's community initiative, which had started as a small local program to support struggling small businesses, had grown faster than he ever imagined. Word of his efforts spread quickly, and soon, leaders from other cities reached out, asking for guidance on how to replicate his model. What began as a local project had the potential to become something much larger, an initiative that could reshape communities across the country. Ethan, ever the strategist, knew that expansion wouldn't be easy. The economic and political landscape was turbulent, and scaling a program like this would require careful planning and significant resources. But he wasn't one to back down from a challenge. If anything, the obstacles ahead only deepened his resolve to make a difference. He started by building partnerships with local governments, nonprofit organizations, and other businesses. His approach was methodical. Instead of relying solely on corporate funds, he sought to create a network of support where the public and private sectors worked together to uplift small businesses in underserved communities. Ethan understood that lasting change couldn't be achieved in isolation. It required collaboration across different sectors. The first test of his expansion came in a low-income neighborhood in Detroit, a city that had been hit hard by economic downturns. Ethan and his team launched a pilot program that provided free business mentorship, access to capital, and networking opportunities for small business owners. The goal was not just to give temporary relief, but to create sustainable businesses that could thrive on their own. The challenges were immediate. Many of the local businesses had been struggling for years and were wary of outside help. Some had been burned before by empty promises from larger companies, or political initiatives that had failed to deliver. Ethan understood their skepticism, so he made a point to personally meet with each business owner, listening to their stories and concerns. His humility and genuine interest in their success won them over. Slowly, the community began to trust that his program wasn't just another fleeting initiative. It was something real. The results were encouraging. Businesses that had been on the verge of closing their doors started to stabilize, and some even began to grow. The pilot program in Detroit became a model for other cities, and soon, requests for Ethan's initiative poured in from across the country. He expanded next to cities like Baltimore, Cleveland, and New Orleans, all places that had been struggling economically but were rich with untapped potential. But with each new city came new challenges. Economic conditions varied from place to place, and what worked in one community didn't always apply to another. Political resistance also emerged, with some leaders hesitant to embrace a program that relied on collaboration between public and private sectors. Some saw Ethan's initiative as a threat to established systems, while others feared it would undermine their political agendas. Ethan, however, remained steadfast. He had always been more focused on long-term impact than short-term popularity. He navigated the political challenges with the same emotional intelligence and resilience Michael had taught him. Instead of confronting opposition head-on, he worked to build relationships, finding common ground where he could. He understood that real change took time and persistence, and he was willing to invest both. His initiative also began to draw attention from national media outlets. Ethan was invited to speak at business and social impact conferences, where he shared the story of how he had turned a personal mentorship experience into a nationwide movement. His talks resonated with audiences because he wasn't just speaking about business success. He was talking about the human side of leadership, about empathy, resilience, and the importance of giving back. At one particularly high-profile conference, Ethan found himself sharing the stage with prominent business leaders, philanthropists, and even government officials. His message was simple but powerful. Success wasn't just about profits. It was about responsibility. It was about using whatever platform you had to make the world a better place, even if the changes seemed small at first. "We have an obligation to do more than just build our companies," Ethan said to the packed audience. "We need to build communities. We need to create opportunities for those who've been left behind. Because at the end of the day, the true measure of our success is not in the wealth we accumulate, but in the impact we leave behind." His words struck a chord. After the conference, he was approached by several high-profile companies and government leaders, all eager to partner with his initiative. The program, which had once seemed like a small community effort, now had the potential to become a national movement. With this newfound attention came both opportunities and risks. The partnerships he formed allowed the initiative to expand faster, but the spotlight also brought scrutiny. Critics began to emerge, questioning the scalability of his program and whether it could truly make a lasting impact across the country. Others doubted the sincerity of his motivations, suggesting that his initiative was merely a way to boost his public image. Ethan didn't let the criticism shake him. He had learned long ago that leadership came with its share of doubters, but he also knew that staying true to his mission was what mattered most. He continued to focus on the work, not the noise surrounding it. The initiative expanded to more cities, and with each new location, Ethan learned valuable lessons about adaptability and resilience. Some cities saw rapid success, while others took longer to see progress. There were setbacks. Some partnerships fell through, and in certain places, local politics slowed down the implementation of the program. But through it all, Ethan remained committed to his vision. As the initiative gained momentum, Ethan's leadership evolved. He had started as a mentee, learning the ropes of business and leadership from Michael. Now, he had become a leader in his own right, one who was not only steering his company but also shaping the future of small businesses across the nation. More than that, Ethan had become a symbol of what it meant to lead with purpose. His focus wasn't just on growing his company or securing his own legacy. It was on making a difference in the lives of others, one small business at a time. And as the initiative continued to expand, Ethan realized that he had found his true calling, not just as a businessman, but as a leader dedicated to creating lasting, positive change. His journey was far from over, but one thing was clear. Ethan was no longer just following in Michael's footsteps. He was carving out a path of his own, one that would leave an enduring legacy for generations to come. Years passed, and Ethan's nationwide initiative became a cornerstone of community development across the country. What had begun as a mentorship program for small business owners in struggling neighborhoods had blossomed into a full-scale movement, helping thousands of entrepreneurs achieve stability and success. Ethan, now a respected leader in both business and social impact circles, had far exceeded his early aspirations. Yet, as he looked back on his journey, he realized that the true measure of his success wasn't in the growth of his company or the accolades he had received. It was in the lives he had helped transform. Ethan sat in his office, now overlooking a thriving city, a far cry from the small-town struggles he once knew. His reflection in the large window seemed almost foreign to him, a reminder of how far he had come. But despite his wealth and influence, Ethan remained grounded, his roots firmly planted in the principles Michael had instilled in him all those years ago. Discipline, perseverance, and a commitment to something greater than himself. One afternoon, Ethan decided to visit the first city where his program had taken hold, Detroit. Walking through the streets, he saw the tangible results of the work he and his team had done. Small businesses that once teetered on the edge of collapse were now bustling with activity. Shops had expanded, new businesses had opened, and the local economy was steadily improving. But more than that, there was a sense of pride and community, people supporting one another, helping to lift each other up. As Ethan stopped by a bakery that had been one of the first participants in his program, the owner, a woman in her 50s named Clara, greeted him with a warm smile. "You don't know how much you changed my life," Clara said, handing him a freshly baked pastry. "There were days I thought I'd lose everything. But the mentorship, the guidance, it gave me hope. Now, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving." Ethan smiled, humbled by her words. He had heard similar stories from hundreds of other business owners, but each one touched him deeply. It wasn't just about the success of the businesses. It was about the ripple effect that success had on families, neighborhoods, and entire communities. The bakery had become a local hub, a place where people gathered, shared stories, and built connections. Clara's story was one of many, and as Ethan continued to visit the other cities where his program had taken root, he saw the same pattern. Businesses growing, communities flourishing, and people rediscovering their potential. His initiative had not just been about teaching business skills. It had been about empowerment, giving people the tools and confidence they needed to take control of their futures. Over time, Ethan's program became a model for other companies and organizations. Large corporations adopted similar initiatives, and government leaders sought Ethan's advice on how to support small businesses and foster economic growth in underserved areas. His work had created a blueprint for how business could be a force for good, demonstrating that financial success and social impact were not mutually exclusive. But through it all, Ethan never lost sight of his original mission. He stayed true to his values, maintaining a humble approach to leadership and always prioritizing the well-being of others over personal gain. When media outlets hailed him as a visionary leader or a business mogul with a heart, Ethan would shrug it off, reminding himself, and anyone who asked, that he was simply continuing the journey Michael had set him on. Michael had retired by this point, but his influence on Ethan was still palpable. They kept in touch, and during one of their regular lunches, Michael reflected on Ethan's accomplishments. "I always knew you had it in you," Michael said with a smile, "but you've taken it further than I ever expected. You didn't just build a business, you've built a movement." Ethan smiled, appreciating the sentiment. "I learned from the best," he replied. "You taught me to think beyond myself, beyond the immediate. That's what I've tried to do. Create something that lasts, something that helps others the way you helped me." Michael nodded. "That's the difference between success and legacy," he said. "Success is what you achieve for yourself. Legacy is what you leave behind for others." As the years went by, Ethan's legacy continued to grow. His initiative expanded beyond the U.S., reaching international communities facing similar struggles. He partnered with global organizations to provide mentorship and resources to small business owners in developing countries, helping to create sustainable economic growth in places that had long been overlooked. Ethan also became a sought-after speaker and author, sharing his philosophy on ethical leadership and social responsibility. But even as he stood on stages before thousands of people or signed copies of his best-selling book, he never lost the quiet humility that had defined him from the start. To him, the work was never about personal fame or fortune. It was about making a difference. In his later years, Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had faced countless challenges, from financial crises to political obstacles, but through it all, he had stayed true to his core principles. He realized that the most important lesson Michael had taught him wasn't about business strategy or leadership techniques. It was about the power of perseverance and staying committed to a higher purpose. Ethan's community initiative, now a global program, had helped tens of thousands of small business owners. But more than that, it had inspired a new generation of leaders who understood that success wasn't just about personal gain. It was about lifting others up and creating lasting change. As Ethan sat in his office one last time, looking out at the world he had helped shape, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had built something far greater than a business. He had built a legacy of compassion, leadership, and empowerment that would endure for generations to come. And as his thoughts drifted back to that fateful day in the park, when Michael had first offered him a choice between quick money or the chance to learn, Ethan smiled. He had made the right choice, not just for himself, but for all the people whose lives had been changed because of it. Ethan's legacy wasn't in the wealth he had accumulated or the accolades he had received. It was in the lives he had touched, the communities he had strengthened, and the hope he had inspired in countless others. And that, he knew, was the true measure of success. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for new inspiring stories and the latest updates delivered straight to your inbox. Join our community and be the first to discover what's next.